Hey folks, Pro Libertate. Thanks again for watching. Today I wanted to talk again about little Greta Thunberg. She's staying perennially in the news at the moment. So I start off with the Lovejoy quotation from The Simpsons. Won't someone please think of the children? In my previous video, I called what's going on at this moment with the climate change stuff a children's crusade. That's what's going on. Children are being used as props and exploited to push an agenda that otherwise wouldn't really get as much sympathy. So a good way to bypass reason is to just go straight for sympathy. And there's no better way to do that than to use children. And so here's Greta Thunberg, again, the girl who sailed across the Atlantic to come to America to tell us to change our ways and stop using fossil fuels. Thought it'd be nice to hear her speak, so let me just play a little clip of her. This is from The Hill. The reason I pulled up this article is below this there's a video, I'll show it in a minute, of Greta crossing paths with President Trump. So again, obviously somebody put her in the path of President Trump so we could have this video. But let's play her speaking first to get a feel of how she thinks.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
Okay, so that's little Greta. She's a full-on believer in the doomsday cult of climate change. Mass extinction is around the corner. That's the way she put it. And obviously she's attacking capitalism there. But more pertinent to this, to my point here, is, again, she's a prop. She's being used as a prop in a greater game. And so here she is again. And here she crosses paths with President Trump. And it's really just images, but the point should be clear.
Welcome to the UN, sir. Are you willing to meet? Thank you very much.
She kind of glares at him.
Are you willing to meet with Mr. Rouhani, sir?
Little Trump.
Are you willing to meet with Mr.
She glares at him angrily. So that's the point. And of course the left is all, yeah, hey, way to go, Greta. You showed that pig Trump. And because she's glaring at him angrily. Because it's his fault. It's his fault. He's part of the reason why the planet's doomed. It's Trump's fault. And the older generation, right? So basically people are being browbeaten by the youth and the children's crusade. They're being shamed into accepting something that they otherwise probably wouldn't. That's the whole goal of the use of children. It's to bypass reason, to bypass argument, and go right for sympathy. That is the whole point. That is why you use children in propaganda. It's, again, this is all propaganda, masquerading as science. This is the disgusting thing about it. Just to further underline this, some images of Greta. Again, in my previous video, I mentioned that Greta is probably used to push this agenda because of how young she looks. She's 16 years old. But my goodness, look at her. Look at these pictures. She looks like she's like 10. Very chubby cheeks, still got baby fat on her face. Very cherub-like, right? So there's a little Greta Okay. So she's chosen to go out there as the face of the youth who are going to be affected by global warming unless we do something now. That's the thing. Stop talking. The time for debate's over. Time for reason and logic and discussion are over. People are dying, according to her, and we need to just act. Stop talking. Stop thinking. Stop, asking for evidence. Stop asking for arguments. Children are going to die. That's the argument. And just as far as propaganda goes, this is nothing new. Again, I mentioned in my previous video how unions basically used women and children as human shields to garner sympathy. The example of that was at the Ludlow massacre, as it's called. It's only a massacre when the supposed good guys are the ones getting shot, right? But it's a battle when the supposed good guys were the ones doing the killing. So that's how the locutions work there. But in this case, yeah, it was coal strikes, I guess, in Colorado, and the workers took up arms against the National Guard, which was called in to quell this, basically. And so the miners had their wives and children in the middle of a war zone. And so this is what kind of turned the tide here. The other example, more recently, I'm just trying to point out that this is nothing new. This was back in 1913 through 14. Okay? Nothing new. That was over 100 years ago. But it was a propaganda move. Yeah, sure, some people died, but it was for the greater good. The other one is this famous image at the U.S.-Mexican border of the mother fleeing with 2 children who look honestly too big to be wearing diapers. But there they are. And what appears to be a can of tear gas, around them there. So this became very famous. And the funny thing to me, again, with a trained eye, you can clearly see that this is propaganda. Look at all the people over here. They're just kind of milling around. This guy's just standing there. The only people who are really running and moving, these guys. So this is obviously a staged photo. Okay? I don't know if it was a U.S. soldier that launched the tear gas or whatever. It's really irrelevant. But somebody was waiting there to capture this photo, right? So people would again, it was this about bypassing reason, bypassing argument, bypassing evidence, bypassing logic to just garner sympathy. That's how it works. And it's nothing new. I got pulled up over here. The incubator babies in 1990. This is what, helped persuade Congress to involve the U.S. in the war in Iraq. And this was written last year. But the fake news in 1990 that propelled the U.S. into the first Gulf War. This is under George Bush the First in 1990. And so you had this girl here, supposedly a nurse in Iraq or Kuwait. And when the Iraqis invaded Kuwait, allegedly, according to her testimony, the Iraqi soldiers started unplugging the incubators and killing babies, right? So again, won't somebody think of the children, right? And so it's all fake. In October 1990, a 15-year-old Kuwaiti girl, again, it's a young girl, gave a harrowing testimony before Congressional Human Rights Caucus, recounting inhumane atrocities committed by Iraqi soldiers in her country. It was credited for helping draw the U.S. into the war later that year. Her claims were ultimately refuted by evidence to the contrary, right? So, again, this is nothing really new. And, the Children's Crusade with little Greta here, for climate change. It just marches on. This is just another chapter in a long story of government propaganda. That's pushed to bypass reason, to bypass logic, evidence, facts, and argumentation, and simply go right to sentiment, go right to emotion, and get people to support something that they otherwise really wouldn't and probably shouldn't. Just think of the demands that are being floated around by a lot of these climate change people, like Ocasio-Cortez and Greta. Basically, we need to go back to living in a pre-industrial age. I don't know about you guys, but I like air conditioning. I like heating. Right? I like plumbing and these wonderful things we have. And this is all because of industrialization. We wouldn't have this, wouldn't have these luxuries without that. I kind of like having electricity. I like being able to cook my food in a microwave, over an electric stove, and these sort of things. I like sitting on my porch with the lights on out here in the middle of the evening. Right? We couldn't have that stuff without industrialization and the use of fossil fuels. These guys really want to roll back the clock. They want to take us back to before the use of fossil fuels. It's absolutely insane. And again, that was her argument in that little testimony played at the very beginning. You talk about endless economic growth, but people are dying. My future has been taken. Like, what are you talking about? I should be in school. Well, in the previous video I had made, apparently she skipped school once a week to go and protest for climate change. Okay. So it's not like you spend a whole lot of time in school there, Greta. My point here with little Greta, though, is she's obviously a tool. There was a picture of her somewhere here, fist bumping with Obama. She's on tour. She gets to, let me see, Obama. Let's pull that up. There she is. There they are. Fist bump. So when you're on the left, you get the fist bump. When you're a right-wing guy like Trump, you get the evil glare. You've stolen my future. That kind of thing. Just ridiculous. So obviously this girl's got a handler. Obviously she's put out for public consumption. I mean, she's going around, she's doing all these TV shows. Obviously just put up for propagandistic purposes. It's just ridiculous. There's another one. Yes. Nice and classy. Figuring out how to save the world. I can't for the life of me understand how this stuff works on people. Maybe the best thing to do is just point out how ridiculous it is. But, I talk for the same reason that dogs bark. And I see this stuff and I have to bark. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this, like, share, subscribe, all that. Have a good night.